Over the past few years, Square Enix has proven they don't really know what their customers want. They had an internal ethics department censoring their games. They put a heavy focus on NFT and blockchain technology. And now another thing that people dislike, exclusivity, is going away because Square Enix is done with PlayStation exclusivity after a giant profit drop. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, companies within the industry over the past couple of years have been happy to lose money in the name of diversity, inclusion, and also innovation, right? We've seen NFT projects fall through, and companies go, oh, it's the start of something new and big for the industry, so we expect to lose a little bit of money. But it seems like a company like Square Enix is done with losing money, allegedly, because Square Enix wants an open relationship, this Forbes article says. Even though Square Enix and Sony's partnership goes back years, something has to change for the publisher, it is realized, and that includes getting its biggest games outside of the reach of a single console. Obviously, when it comes to exclusivity, it can be beneficial, especially if we're talking about something like Xbox Game Pass, right? We've heard developers say they don't, make money and they don't want, that to continue, that aspect, but at the same time they've said it is crazy the amount of reach we get as a smaller development group because of Xbox, because of Microsoft having that behemoth behind us. Of course, sometimes, yes, exclusivity can work and can be beneficial because you're getting millions of more eyes on your project, but when you are very big like Square Enix and you already have millions and millions of people who are watching your products, yeah, it is not beneficial to be exclusive. It says in its latest earnings release, Square Enix reports a profit drop of 69.7% year-over-year, thanks in part to MMO and mobile declines, and also growing operations losses from high devs cost, even if sales are slightly up. But the company has made it clear it plans to make the most of those high development costs with releases on more platforms. Now, of course, last year, one of Square Enix's largest losses was, of course, Forspoken. Funny enough, Luminous Studios actually had to be shut down because it was such a massive failure. And of course, a lot of those devs did, be put on other projects at Square Enix, but that was their major game for last year. One of the games they were really hoping was going to start a new IP, but it also focused on appealing to Western audiences. And clearly it really didn't, seeing as nobody bought it and it was such a giant financial failure. And of course, this year we had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and while we have heard it has sold okay, it definitely does not sound like it did all that well for them. Judging by these numbers, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has sold around 2 million copies, PS5 player data suggests, and this is, just according to data, so take it with a grain of salt, it could be much higher, but if these numbers are to be true, it was behind the first remake and also Final Fantasy XVI, which was a fantastic game that released last year, but even that we heard, did pretty good for them compared to something at least like Forspoken and apparently Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It says many of Square Enix's biggest games have been launched into one-platform partnerships, like last year's Final Fantasy XVI and this year's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, both out on a single system, the PlayStation 5. Even if that console is very popular, Square Enix now fully understands they cannot limit themselves to this strategy, no matter what kind of relationship they've had with Sony. There's also been rumors circulating over the past couple of years that somebody wants to buy Square Enix, whether it was Microsoft or Sony, even though it would cost Sony a heck of a lot of money. There was that rumor floating around, but it sounds like Square Enix is looking to stay as a solo developer and not be put under the umbrella of something like Sony or Microsoft, and they're looking to get their games to as many people as possible, which, to be honest, should have always been their strategy, is to get the game in the hands of as many people as possible, and it's kind of a no-brainer that it would be on multiple platforms. Some are saying this reflects poorly on Sony, and I personally would agree. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that goes into a relationship like this. Sony promises marketing, and they promise promotional material. They, say, oh, we'll definitely make X amount of money, judging by the amount of PlayStation 5s that are in the wild. And looking at something like the first part of the remake, Final Fantasy VII Remake, or now they're calling it Intergrade. Oh, well, you're going to double the amount that you sold of that, or at least get, a higher amount than that, but it does not sound like that has happened. Of course, though, you also have to consider Square Enix is not in the best of positions when it comes to their customers either. We have been unhappy with a lot of the decisions that they've been making over the past few years. Of course, they announced that they were going to aggressively pursue NFTs, and that was going to be a very big focus for them. They had tripled down on blockchain with new deals, even as other publishers fleed, and we as customers had tried to tell them via things like social media that this is not the direction we want you to go in. This is not what gamers want. Yes, maybe in 10 years the industry will be in a different place, but right now people do not like NFTs. They do not like blockchain, and they are extremely worried about, what is going to happen with all this new big direction that, of course, companies are considering going in, and like Square Enix dove headfirst into the pool of. And of course, we also have, when it comes to their content itself, things like Square Enix ethics department striking again, as, Tifa was of course censored, certain outfits were censored, we had this panty scene censored in Rebirth, and this has been with a lot of their recent titles. Of course, this is, for me, a major problem. I do think that Square Enix has made some absolutely amazing games, and I did not think something like Final Fantasy VII Intergrade was bad, don't get me wrong, and I absolutely loved Final Fantasy XVI last year. It was my game of the year personally, but at the same time, there's only so much of this bullshit that we are going to put up with. There's only so many chances that we are going to give you to change things around, and obviously when it comes to Final Fantasy Rebirth's allegedly low sales, I don't think that this is the only reason why. I do definitely think that it has to do heavily with it being an exclusive, but I do think that decisions like this, having an ethics department, does definitely make consumers think twice. At least some consumers think twice, and ultimately did push away some people from purchasing this game. And of course, Square Enix is not the only company that is struggling within the industry right now. We have seen tons of layoffs, tons of closures, and Square Enix will not be the last company to announce a major shakeup, but at this point in time, it does look like they are kind of desperate to get away from the clutches of Sony. And even with this new plan, it is likely the biggest platform for Square Enix games will be the PlayStation, mainly due to brand association and market share, but obviously, only time will tell. I do have to say, though, I am very disappointed with the direction that Square Enix has gone in over the past couple of years, and I think many people would love for them to turn it around. I would love them to turn it around, because something like Final Fantasy is amazing, and I do think they have it in them to create a new IP that is just as good. Of course, I don't think that currently they would be able to do that, and currently they are in a tough spot with consumers, but it would be great if they could turn things around and go back to what made them so popular in the first place, and really hone in on listening to consumers and actually trying to change for the better. But it seems like Square Enix is done with PlayStation exclusivity after profits drop. I will be keeping my eye on this in case they make any other big announcements, but for now, that's all all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel, and of course if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.